Jiang Zemin wants to destroy Falun Gong practitioners' reputations, cut them off financially, eradicate them physically. In May of 2000, the CCP gave the police the authority to arrest Falun Gong practitioners of their own accord without arrest warrants. To protest such unlawful arrests, in October 2000, upwards of 10,000 Falun Gong practitioners made to Tiananmen Square, and displayed banners. And thousands of adherents were even doing exercise in groups. Somebody in the Politburo was having a good laugh at Jiang Zemin. His understanding of the power of spiritual belief fell squarely within the old way of thinking of the CCP's class struggle. Although Jiang utilized the hardest means of suppression and persecution, acquired by the CCP over decades, Falun Gong just would not yield, and its practitioners protest peacefully. No one attempts to retaliate or resort to any kind of violence. Jiang was utterly helpless in the face of the unarmed Falun Gong followers. At times, Falun Gong adherents appeared that they were being assisted by a higher power. For example, in October 2000, more than 10 Falun Gong practitioners were handcuffed and taken into the detention center. However, after they entered the cell, all of their handcuffs simultaneously came off. All the guards and inmates were dumbfounded. Afterward, no one dared to make any trouble for the practitioners. When Jiang Zemin read the report on this, he was left in a cold sweat, and dared not to think about it anymore. All Jiang could do was simply intensify the efforts to win the 610 officers over, with money and power. After they carried out the persecution orders, they were rewarded with bonuses and promotions. Under the bribery and intimidation by Jiang and CCP, the last thread of innate kindness was destroyed in some of the law enforcement officials. Their wicked side engorged quickly. They persecute and torture Falun Gong practitioners in many cruel and inhuman ways. Chen Zishu, 58, a woman practitioner from Weifang, Shandong Province, refused to renounce her faith in Falun Gong. After repeated jolts from cattle prod by the police, she was forced to run barefoot in the snow. She vomited and collapsed, never gained consciousness and died on February 21. 2 days of tortures left her body too horrible to look at. The police claimed that she had died from a sudden heart attack, and extorted 3,000 yuan fees from her daughter. The Wall Street Journal reporter, Ian Johnson, wrote a report on Chen Zishu, later won the Pulitzer Prize for his series of stories on Falun Gong. However, the Chinese government detained Chen's daughter, because she told the truth, and appealed for justice for her mother. And her husband was forbidden to visit her during her detention, while the torturers were promoted one after another. Chinese psychiatric hospitals are utilized in the persecutions too, where Falun Gong followers are locked up and tortured with chemical injections. Most of the staff there are either police officers or hired thugs. They inject healthy Falun Gong followers with psychiatric drugs. In Changping County Psychiatric Hospital, the hired thugs gang raped a 9-year-old girl at night, whose parents were Falun Gong practitioners locked up in the hospital, and later were murdered there. Still, some people wouldn't take part in the suppression. To mass more manpower, Jiang Zemin ordered a merger between the Political Defense Division and the 610 office, thereby effectively expanding the 610, to intensify its suppression of Falun Gong. As a result, the 610 offices had more power than units at any other level of the police system. The power of the 610 office within the provincial police department was so great that they can arrange an inspection of, and issue orders to, other units at the same level. But what was laughable was that very few police officers responded to the recruitment efforts on the part of 610. In the end, the assignments of personnel had to be appointed by a computer. Even within the police system, 610 becomes synonymous with messing around. Many police officers with a sense of justice refused to get involved in the persecutions. A former 610 police officer, Hao Fengjun, who escaped to Australia in 2005, described how he felt when he was performing that job. At the office, we would often talk to each other with our mouth half covered, voice as low as possible, and eyes darting all around. Having been in that atmosphere for a long time, we grew accustomed to speaking in this fashion even in public situations, like we are afraid of being heard, or afraid others might know what we are talking about. We are so sneaky, it's like we have developed a mental disorder. Hao Fengjun said, "Once, I rushed to work, drove to the prison of the Nankai branch of the Tianjin Public Bureau. I saw Falun Gong practitioner Sun Ti's eyes were so swollen because of the beating. The police officer who interrogated her was Mu Reili, the captain of the 2nd Division of the 610 Office of Bureau of the State Security. Mu was holding a steel rod, 0.6 inches in diameter, with screw threads that show blood stains. And there was a high-voltage electrical baton on the table. Sun showed me her back. I was shocked. Almost her entire back had turned black. There were 2 gashes, of about 8 inches in length, oozing blood. I also saw a policeman beating her with a metal rod, that was over a foot long. When I saw this, I knew I couldn't do this job. Hao Fengjun spoke out to stop the suppression. As a result, he was jailed in the cell at sub-zero temperatures for more than 20 days. In Australia, Hao Fengjun and Chen Yonglin, a former consul in the Chinese consulate in Sydney, Australia, who was in charge of political issues, spoke out in public about their personal experiences, exposing the merciless brutality of the CCP's persecution of Falun Gong, in and outside China. A third person, a former CCP police officer, who escaped to Australia and who was unwilling to reveal his name, told his experience to an Australian TV program Lateline, through Bernard Collaery, a well-respected attorney in Canberra. Once, he heard the sound of someone being beaten up in the police department, so he hurried to break it up, but he was told to leave. He saw a naked man, whose head had collapsed back into a chair. His legs were outstretched. It was obvious that he was already dead. Han Guangsheng, who was once the Associate Director of the Public Security Bureau in Shenyang City, Liaoning Province, escaped to Canada in September 2001. He revealed that Jiang Zemin's order at that time was primarily an effort to stop Falun Gong practitioners from going to Beijing to appeal. One of the controlling measures is that if more than 3 Falun Gong practitioners go to appeal, then the party's vice secretary and even the secretary of that city have to do self-criticism. To avoid that, leaders from each city started using the power of the police, and a lot of money, to stop Falun Gong practitioners from going to Beijing. Han Guangsheng said, Ma Sanjaya labor camp implemented all sorts of methods of torture and abuse, to improve their renunciation rate. I didn't know it initially but later found out, that the Ministry of Justice ordered all cities to go to Ma Sanjaya, to learn their transformation techniques. The principal technique, used in Ma Sanjaya, is the use of electrical baton. Practitioner Gao Rongrong, a staff member from the financial department of Luxun Academy of Fine Art in Shenyang, was shocked on her face with electrical batons, for over 6 hours by Tang Yubao and Zhang Zhaohua, on May 7, 2004, in Longshan labor camp. Her beautiful face was severely disfigured. 1 year later, Gao Rongrong was tortured to death. From July 20, 1999, to June 2005, more than 100,000 Falun Gong adherents, including pregnant women, the elderly, and young children had been sent to forced labor camps without trial. More than 6,000 practitioners were formally sentenced to prison terms up to 20 years. Several thousand Falun Gong practitioners were detained in psychiatric hospitals and injected with drugs harmful to their nervous systems. Over 3,000 deaths under police custody have been confirmed. Moreover, the whereabouts of countless adherents are still unknown. The depth and breadth of this catastrophe are still difficult to estimate.